Hey everyone, so this is the video of me getting Evette running and driving, and actually driving it up and down the street once or twice. And I'm just gonna preface the video by telling you that I don't do any full throttle pulls or really anything like that. It's still very preliminary, but I just wanted to get that out there, and probably gonna have to forward to like the last minute or two of the video if you just want to see the car driving, because the first 3/4 of it is just gonna be me fixing little things to get it going. And enjoy. All right, it's Tuesday, and we're gonna be working on Evette again today. Uh, One of the things I realized I'm gonna need most right now is a checklist, because there's only a few minor things that really need to be done in order to get this car rolling down the street. And I've went ahead and compiled what I believe is a pretty complete list, and this is what we're looking at. The throttle pedal, obviously, the front strut bar, that's going to require some minor welding, and I need to finish the wiring. It's just a little bit messy right now. I need to tidy it up, that's all. The fuel lines, I had some special clips made for my buddy Ummer, and they're really awesome. He 3D printed them. But I'm noticing that they're having a little trouble supporting the 10AN fuel lines, and I don't want to risk snapping them, so I'm gonna make a piece of 16 gauge sheet metal that kind of slides over it in order to hold them together. And then we got the differential. I need to drop that off of the car, the entire thing, and I need to put a seal around the rear flange, and then I need to fill it up with fluid. And while I have that out, I also am going to want to paint the underside of all this custom sheet metal work that I did. And flex fuel sensor, I hooked that up, and for some reason I couldn't get a reading on the Holley EFI, and I did not have this problem before when the car was just single turbo, so I've got some digging to do there. I believe I had a roadblock on that and kind of just gave up for the time being, but I also need to bleed the brakes, and I'd like to change the engine oil because it still has the original oil with all the old assembly lube that probably came out of all the bearings and stuff after the initial run. So I'd like to put in some fresh oil. And a little less important, paint the interior sheet metal plus the cage. Starting to show surface rust, and that just gets worse and worse, so the quicker we get on that, probably the better. And finishing the sheet metal in the trunk area, and also a new rear area below the taillights, the roll pan area. I'm going to make a completely smooth panel for that, so need to get that done as well. But like I said, I want to wait until after I test the rear suspension to make sure that it operates as I'm expecting it to. So what we're going to work on today, since we don't have a throttle cable until tomorrow, we're going to prep the end of the linkage we made to accept the throttle cable, and then we're going to drag the welder in here, and we'll probably finish up the strut bar. What needs to happen here is I'm going to weld a plate inside these triangular pieces, and a bolt's going to run through from here to here to just add extra support to the core, radiator support. And in order to figure out exactly where that plate's gonna go, I'm gonna take another plate and tack weld it right on top of this to the strut tower. And doing that will give me a baseline of where this piece lands, and then I'll just measure 1/8 of an inch down, and that's where I'll know to weld the interior piece. And if I make my template correctly, I should have a really nice fit on that for both sides. So I guess we'll just head on out to the shop now and get started on this throttle linkage. All right, it's been a while since I've messed with one of the low car throttle cables, and all I remember is that it has a clevis on the end that attaches to the throttle pedal linkage. So I know that the original cleavage, or the original linkage for the BMW, it worked, it connected to it. So what I believe we have to do is file down our rod to the thickness of this, which looks like about 1/8 an inch, and then just drill a hole through it, and we'll be all prepped for the throttle cable. All right, that took us all of about 5 minutes. Just threw it on the bandsaw real quick and cut a bit off of each side, and then hit it on the grinder and drilled a hole through it and wire wheeled it, and I think we're good to go. So this is all ready, and our next step is going to be to pull these guys off real quick and clean them up and drill a couple holes in them so that we could shoot some spot welds through them onto the firewall. And yeah, I really hope that the hole size on this is going to be big enough, because once this is welded in place, drilling a hole in that again is going to be very difficult. So as I was mocking this guy up, I realized I was having an issue with the pedal assembly being able to slide over. So what I went ahead and did was weld this nut on here as a stop, and then the two mount points will just slide on here. One will butt up against this and the other will be pretty tight to this side, so it won't have any ability to go either way. So I'm just waiting for that bolt to cool down, and then I'll get this thing welded in. So while I'm waiting for that throttle linkage to cool down so I can get it installed, I went ahead and grabbed a couple of pieces of scrap and just welded them to the strut tower. And I only welded them enough so that they won't move when I remove this guy. And now, as you can see, what I've got here is this is going to tell me exactly what angle this comes off at. And all I have to do is lay another piece of 1/8 inch flat plate underneath this, and then take the piece that's gonna sit inside of here and slide it right underneath that second piece of 1/8, and I'll have a perfect angle of where it needs to be welded onto the strut tower. So I'll get this side welded on there, and then throttle linkage should be ready to go. All right, just like that, we got throttle. And I have a little spring hooked up on the other side just to give it the actuation right now. But you know, as you can see, I think it sits in a pretty good location, and I think it sits in a perfect location right here. So throttle cable attaches here, mounts here, and that's our throttle pull right there with the spring attached to it. So it's pretty much straight in line, and as luck would have it, it actuates almost exactly 2 inches, which is what it takes to open the throttle blade 90 degrees. And I think it's gonna work out. So just like that, one thing off our list, and we're halfway through another. Next thing up to do is gonna be to pull off the front core support here and get started making these mounting points. One down. All right, we got the front end off of the motor there. Intercooler comes off with the radiator and the core support in one complete piece. I didn't have the radiator in there though for now, so what we got to do now is I'm gonna use probably a piece of 1/4 inch plate, and I'll just take another scrap piece of 1/8 inch and stack it under here, stack the 1/4 onto that. And the 1/4 I'm actually going to cut out to be similar to this shape, just smaller. And we'll just remount this, drill holes straight through, and I think we'll be pretty much done with this. I'm actually going to probably paint this as well before throwing it back in, because I'm getting sick of taking it on and off, to be completely honest. Hey, good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, and I came home, got my low car throttle cable and started right away getting to work on cutting it to length and making it work for the Evette. So it's all hooked up now, and we have a throttle pedal. It doesn't quite open the throttle blades 90 degrees, and I think that's because the bottom of the pedal hits the floor and bottoms out before it's able to, but it opens it, I'd say, close to 90. And this is what we're looking at right there. So a couple fine tweaks, and I think we will have it opening the throttle plate 90 degrees, even though we don't need it to, most likely. So the next step is going to be to make the two pieces that need to weld to this in order to support the core support. So I've already started by making a couple of templates right here, so I know the shape of the curve that I need. And next thing I'm going to do is just cut them out and get them welded on. Alright, we got our tabs welded on there, and I went ahead and broke off the locating plates. Now I just need to hit this with a grinder to clean it up a little bit, and we'll be ready to remount the core support, and then we'll be able to shoot some holes through the core support and this, and then drop some bolts through, and hopefully it won't have to come off again until after we make sure it's roadworthy. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and call it a night. And we'll get to work on grinding this stuff out first thing tomorrow. So I'll see y'all then. Good night. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's Thursday. I just got home from work, and Thursdays are my Fridays, so it's going to be a bit of a marathon tonight into tomorrow morning. And the reason for that is my 4-link kit for the COE build is going to arrive at some point tomorrow, and I've been waiting on that for quite a while, so you know I'm going to want to jump right back into that as soon as it gets here. We did cross the throttle linkage off of the list last night. We're close to crossing the strut bar off. And also, let's see, we're gonna plan to drop the differential tonight and get that guy sealed up and paint the underside, hopefully, before we put it back in. And probably try to bleed the brakes tomorrow. We did drain the engine oil last night, so we're gonna stop and get some new oil tomorrow while we're at the metal yard. And geez, and we'll be real close to being able to drive this thing out of the garage on its own power. So let's see where the weekend takes us. And first thing we're gonna do is take the strut bar off of the car and finish welding it out. And we're gonna grind off those welds that held on the locators for the tabs we welded on. All right, we got the strut bar out so we could finish welding it all throughout the center section and even on the outsides there. And I gotta say, it was, I'm really working myself into a corner fabricating stuff for this car, because I had to take out both up pipes off of the turbo, and I'm lucky I didn't have to take these off as well, honestly. It was just super challenging to get it out of there. So 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag. Anyways, let's get back to the shop and get this thing welded. I'm pretty concerned when I weld this piece that we're going to get some warpage, especially since we're welding so much towards the center here. I think it's going to kind of bow a little bit from shrinkage where I weld. And if that happens, it's not going to fit the strut towers the same way, which is just going to make a whole lot more work. So the only thing we can really do is go slow in small sections, and that's exactly what I plan to do. So wish me luck. I was walking back to the garage to grab my glasses, actually, and I saw this section of I-beam sitting there, and call me crazy, but I went ahead and tack welded the strut bar to it on both sides. And I'm hoping that that will help prevent some warpage. You know, I can't say for sure, but I'm sure that anything is gonna help. So let's get to it. It's pretty crazy, but I've only welded, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 inches total so far, and I can already hear and feel the whole thing just shifting around. And I haven't even started welding in the middle yet, you know, just there, those 3 spots. So keep your fingers crossed. We're all finished welding it, and it's still a little hot in the middle here, so we're just gonna let it cool for a little while longer before we cut the tack welds. And when we cut the tack welds, we're gonna do one side at a time, and we're gonna look to see when we cut it if it springs in any direction. I'm guessing it's probably gonna spring in a little bit if it warped, but we won't know for sure until we make the cut. So we'll do that in about 5 minutes. All right, we got the first side popped off, and it doesn't really look like it moved too much. I'm thinking those tack welds might have held us in place pretty solid. So let's break off the other side and see if that is the case. I decided to go ahead and spray bomb it just because I'm tired of watching it rust, and for the most part I'm not doing any more welding on it. So I also got the core support painted, and looks a hell of a lot better black than it did rusting metal. So, you know, we'll get them installed here after the paint dries. All right, so instead of watching the paint dry, we're gonna go ahead and drop the rear end out of the back of the car and get a seal put on the back cover, and then we're gonna fill it up with fluid, and we'll go ahead and spray bomb the underside as well while we have it out, just because it's ready. So let's get started. Figured I'd let you get a look at what we're working with down here before we drop it. It's a C4 Corvette independent rear suspension that's narrowed probably way more than it should be. But we're gonna try it and see what happens. If we blow it up, we'll just put a 9-inch back here, and then we'll blow up the transmission. So first thing we're gonna do is just disconnect the A-arms that connect up there at the front. Or I don't think they're A-arms, they're more like swing arms, but anyways, we disconnect all 4 of those, and then we disconnect the differential. That's another 4 bolts, and we'll have it up on the jack, and we'll just lower it down. We're gonna have to take off the drive shaft as well. First things first, gotta get off those tires. I apologize in advance that I don't have a light, but I've got everything disconnected. The front supports disconnected, the 2 rear supports, the swing arms, and the attachment for our suspension. So we're gonna go ahead and start lowering it down, and it should just sit down on our dollies, and we'll roll it right up. All right, it's out in one piece. Went relatively smooth. It didn't fall off the jack like it has before. And now we're just gonna strip everything out of here. The brake lines, all the bolts and hardware, fuel lines. Gosh, I'm gonna have to drain the fuel. And then we'll just go ahead and clean everything up with a Scotch-Brite pad in preparation for paint. But first we're gonna put some sealant on that diff cover so we can get some fluid added in it and check that off the lid. I think we're gonna want to go ahead and leave the differential tilted forward like this, at least for enough time to let the Permatex set up, because we did add the fluid already. So we're just gonna leave it like this. Might throw a jack stand underneath it just to make sure that it doesn't roll back. And we're gonna start prepping the underside of the car. All right, I went and got a light so you guys can see a little bit better here. And I've pretty much gotten everything taken out. Disconnected the fuel lines from the fuel cell, and didn't even spill a drop, you know, drained it all into this bucket. And the last thing we gotta get out is the fuel cell, but it's wedged in there pretty dang good. So, and it's also full of gas, which is not helping. I'm thinking probably gonna use the jack to push it out and then try and lift it. Let's give it a shot. All right, here's the plan. I rehooked up the power supply for one fuel pump, and I pulled part of the return line off of the full run and hooked it up to the supply side, ran it down to the gas tank. Now, when I turn the key in the ignition on this car, the fuel tank primes for like 5 to 10 seconds. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn the ignition on with the battery disconnected, and then I'm just gonna leave the key in the on position, and I'll connect the ground. It'll prime the pump for 10 seconds, fill up this gas tank, and then we'll just continually disconnect and reapply the ground, fill both of these up, and we should be able to pull this guy out without much hassle. All right, watch and learn. So, supply line to tank, ground wire hooked up. And there it goes. A few minutes from now, we should be completely empty. Well, it took me about 10 seconds to realize I was being kind of dumb. I don't need the car's electrical system at all, since I have the power and the ground for a fuel pump right here. And I have the leads right here, so I'll just leave the ground connected to ground, and I'll just hook the power up to power, and it'll stop shutting off. Or not. Okay, I didn't have the ground hooked up to the battery, but we're good now, so let's see, it should work. Yeah! All right, we'll make quick work of this now. I don't know if you could see it, but we're almost halfway. It's a little slow going with just one pump running. Tank number 2. Hear that? That's the pump running dry. So the fuel cell should be like at least 90% empty. Let's find out. Yeah, damn, that thing is wedged in there tight. Actually, oh, God, I love the taste of gas. So it's out, and we can start prepping. What's going on, everybody? So it's Friday, and I actually ended up calling it a night last night because I didn't have any wire wheels to prep the surface properly and strip off that surface rust. But I ran a bunch of errands today, went to the metal yard, got the metal I need for the truck, went to Harbor Freight, got some wire wheels, some sanding discs, and made a few other stops, got the oil we needed for the engine, and we also have finished with the prep and laid down a coat of black spray paint. It's not perfect, got a little overspray in a couple spots, but it's better than the metal rusting away like it was. So I hit some spots on the cage. Most of it I didn't, because I don't want to hit windows and I don't want to hit door jambs and stuff like that. I don't want it to look terrible. So I did paint most of the flat sheet metal surfaces that I could. Transmission tunnel I cleaned up and sprayed, and all of the new sheet metal that I did as well. So it's getting there. We're real close. I'm probably gonna call it for now because I've got to let this paint dry before installing the rear end again. And I actually have to run some errands, so I'll be doing that. Got the rear end completely back in, and brake lines are all tightened up, fuel lines are all tightened up. I have to reinstall the fuel cell, but before I do, I have to make a mounting bracket for the top bar that locks it in. So it's gonna require welding, and we don't want to weld near a fuel cell, so we'll get that done first. I threw in the fuel cell securing bracket to get an idea of where we're gonna have to make our brackets. So I took a couple of measurements and we're gonna go ahead and cut some pizzas out. Alright, these brackets that we're gonna make have to mount to an 1.5 inch piece of tubing. So we're gonna take a piece of 3/16 scrap and we're gonna drill a 1.5 inch hole right in the middle of this piece of scrap. Then we're gonna cut it down the middle and we'll have 2 brackets that will fit over the 1.5 inch tube very nicely. And then we can determine where we need to drill our hole for the bolt. There's a hole. And here are 2 brackets that will mount to 1.5 inch tubing. Alright, we whipped up some super simple brackets, and now we just gotta pull this tube back out, clean it up a little bit, and then put it back together, throw some tack welds on, and pull it out again, and get it fully welded. We are ready to weld, and normally I would want to use my TIG welder to do this, just because I did this car pretty much 99% with a TIG welder. It was really important to me at the time because I was just figuring out how to use it. So unfortunately the TIG welder's out in the shop and I don't feel like dragging it all the way into the garage just to do these 2 little brackets. But the MIG welder is in here, and you know, it's just 2 little brackets, so we'll just use that. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and call it a night at this. We've got the fuel cell back in, got the fuel lines reconnected, got everything, all the bolts tightened down for the first time ever. And yeah, next step back here will be to bleed the brakes. The drive shaft's all hooked up. Tomorrow, first thing, we'll go ahead and tackle that radiator, get it welded into the core support, get the core support reinstalled, and we'll be well on our way. So I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Good night. All right, well, I couldn't wait, and after I carried it into the garage, I threw the core support back on and got everything basically bolted up. There's a couple of connections I still need to make on the throttle body there, but I'll take care of that tomorrow. Just one last thing on the list. So I'm calling it a night on Tuesday, and I've gotten the brakes bled and pretty much every bolt and nut tightened and double checked, and I got the car set on the ground. I haven't started it yet. I'm probably gonna wait until tomorrow to do that, just to double check everything and make sure the brakes haven't leaked or anything like that. But check it out, our list is pretty much completely done. Still got the rear sheet metal on there, but like I said, we're gonna do that after road testing it. And I do have to mount a front sway bar, which shouldn't be too difficult, but I don't think we'll need it for the maiden voyage. So we'll get the seats thrown in this thing and get the steering wheel bolted up, and we should be on our way tomorrow after work. I'll catch you then.
I think I found what was pooping and peeing in my car. It's a cat.
Well, for some reason the clutch pedal doesn't really seem to be building up pressure, and I've already bled like, I don't know, half a reservoir through it. I feel like it's got a little bit at the bottom, but I guess we're just gonna have to keep bleeding it. There must be an air bubble. It's real strange because it'll build up some pressure, and then I'll open the bleeder valve with the pedal down and fluid will come out without air bubbles. And that's basically been for the last like 4 bleeds. So and I instantly lose pedal pressure and it doesn't come back. So I don't know, I guess we'll keep trying. Well, I'm starting to get some pedal pressure after pumping for about 5 minutes now. But I just tried to start it again and it still won't go into gear, so we don't have enough pedal pressure. And I kind of find it odd that when I bleed it, I don't get any air bubbles. I lose all pedal pressure for 5 minutes. So So I don't know. Kind of scared to bleed it again, but I think we're gonna have to. Or maybe we'll just keep pumping it for a little while longer. Alright, well the clutch pedal has a good amount of stiffness, and I can get it into 2, 4, and 6, but none of the other gears, none of the up gears. So maybe I installed the shifter wrong, I'm not sure. I'm gonna check that right now. I kind of doubt it, but I find it odd that only the gears going one way would engage, so let's see. Alright, I figured it out. So I never ran this B&M short shifter before, but it comes with these washers that mount the shifter in 2 different positions. You can mount it obviously favoring up or towards the tail, and I had them in there backwards, so I just tested it and it shifts into gear. So we're gonna get this thing bolted back down and then I can actually pull the car out of the drive. Okay, so I was wrong about that too. It helped, but when I start to let the clutch out, it just kicks the shifter back out of gear. And I started doing some research. I think I'm missing a bushing that goes, or it's like a cup that catches the bottom of the shifter. I don't think I saw it in there when I just had it off, but I'll double check in a second. For now, I think I'm just gonna turn the car around and pull it in forwards. I knew it was low, but dang. I guess I'm just gonna have to take the angle a little steeper next time. I'm popping the cover off of the shifter right now because I'm really not sure why it won't shift into any of the forward positions, or when it does, it only goes halfway. So my guess is that there must be a shift cup missing or something, but it feels tight, so we'll find out in a minute. So I was definitely wrong. The plastic cup is there. I guess we're just gonna manipulate the shifter position and see if we can't get it to work. Alright, so I fixed the shifter. It seems like all that needed to happen was it had to be pushed even further back, and then it totally went into every gear fine. And I just backed it out into the street and kind of just went forward and backward up and down the street a couple times. And the alignment is really bad on it, so I can't get a real accurate idea of how it feels. One thing I can say is that I didn't even really get up to any real speed, and I already don't think I'm gonna like those manual master brake cylinders, because, or maybe I just need to bleed the system more. I don't know, the pedal, you really gotta stomp on that thing hard and fast to get it to really do anything. So right now I'm gonna see if I can't adjust the tie rods and get a little bit better of toe on the front end here. The rear end, I'm pretty much SOL. I don't think I'm gonna be able to figure that one out. Too many adjustments. So I went up and down the street one time, and it felt okay. When I was doing a U-turn down at the end of the street, it pretty much stalled on me in the middle of the intersection. Luckily, I had enough momentum to roll out, but I'm not sure why that was. It seems to be holding the AFRs pretty steady. I think maybe the fuel tank's lost or something like that. I don't have very much gas in there, so that's what I'm doing right now. But I got to be honest and say the manual brake setup is really not floating my boat, so I don't know what I'm gonna do about that. I know people recommend like different pads and such like that. Maybe I'll go that route, see if I can't make it better. I'm also thinking maybe there might be some residual air left in the system. I mean, you know, there hasn't been any brake system on this car for like 3.5 years, so I'll look into that as well before doing anything too extreme. But I have always heard people kind of talk down upon the manual brake assemblies. So for now, we're just gonna keep making small improvements. And yeah, that's it for tonight. I'll catch you later.